Hangout is on there live. And I need to start thinking about workflows in this domain-driven design subject area. All this is kind of new to me. I purchased the book Domain-Driven Design, but I never really read it. This is a thick book, but I like reading Scott Vlashin's book. His book is, let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Come here. Scott Vlashin has a book. I guess I could say Presentary One. Scott Vlashin has a book. Kill You. Come here. It's F sharp domain modeling. I don't know, something like that. And it should be book. I mean, maybe that would be helpful. And domain modeling made functional. I can never ever remember the name of that book, but this is it right here. And this is the cover of the book right here. And I like that book. So I created about 3 videos prior to this one that I'm live streaming right now. And pretty much focused on building out this mobile application that's supposed to essentially model this Nikeza IO web application. Okay. And so in my last video, I basically, from a couple of videos ago, went through an exercise of event storming. And then that ultimately not only fleshed out events, but it also fleshed out the commands that were responsible for spawning those events, and also commands that should be based off of those events being triggered. So commands that should be invoked off of new events that have bubbled up. I don't know how to articulate that, whatever. And I also identified some bounded contexts, such as a portfolio bounded context, a profile bounded context, and a subscriptions bounded context. There's also, I wonder if this common really, should I tuck away this common? Yeah, I'm going to tuck away this common library and throw it in integration. And this core library here, the only events that we have is page requested. Only commands that we have is still dealing with the page. So both of that is kind of pointing towards navigation. And navigation is more of I would say IO, because you're displaying different pages, and pages are a presentation, and that's output. I don't know if core should really be the name of this. Keza.mobile. I don't know. App logic. That sounds okay. And this app logic probably should be tucked away in this integration folder. Come here. Probably should be tucked away in this integration folder. So now our Solution Explorer should scream intent. We abstract away all the stuff that deals with integration via a folder named integration, and we have a portfolio, profile, and subscriptions. Those are the basic components that make up our system. So this is supposed to scream intent. It does something with a portfolio, it does something with a profile, and it does something with subscriptions. What else? Well, I guess in this video, I'm supposed to be experimenting with, let me close all these windows in here. supposed to be trying to brainstorm about workflows and what does that really mean. So if I start with profile, my understanding is that a workflow, from reading Scott Vlashin's book, Domain Modeling Made Functional, is a workflow will always have a command as input, and it will always output domain events. Okay. I want to say that again so it kind of sinks in. A workflow will always be a function that takes in a command and outputs a list of events. Okay, so what does that mean? That probably means that for each of these bounded contexts, they should all have their own workflow or workflows. So portfolio should have a workflow. Profile should have a workflow. Subscriptions should have a workflow. All right, well, since we're focused on profile, what type of workflow would profile have? Well, if we have commands such as validate, and is validating a registration form and submitting a registration form, and then also with a profile, you can log in and you can also edit a profile and save a profile. What does that really mean, right? Well, I guess for every if a workflow takes the input that will always be a command, is it fair to say that there will be n number of workflows based on n number of commands? Translated, does that mean that for every command that you have declared, you will have a corresponding workflow that will accept that command as input and spit out domain events as output? I don't know the answer to that, but in a way, I feel like that probably sounds right. So maybe there's a validate workflow, there's a try submit workflow, there's a login workflow, there's an edit workflow, and there's a save workflow. Okay. When I think about workflow, I think of like a business process that gets executed. But those are two different things. Well, so let's start off with what I do know is each bounded context needs to have a workflow, if not a collection of workflows. So we do Control-Shift-A, and we will have a validate workflow. Validate workflow. So we have a validate workflow, or it should just be called workflows. Yeah, we're going to start off with workflows.fs. And why does this not look right? Workflow.fs. Okay. We add that. And well, this workflows module, it needs to import the command Nikeza.mobile. Come here, Nikeza.mobile. This is just called commands. Okay. This might be okay. I mean, that might be okay. Am I really required to use Nikeza.mobile.whatever? I'm not sure. This is pretty specific to Nikeza, and it's not something that can be reusable, I don't think. So maybe I don't need the Nikeza.mobile namespace. Maybe this is okay to just say workflows and commands, and that's it. What about registration? Uh, yeah, I'm thinking this might be okay too. No, if I build it, there's probably going to be some compile errors. And we have a failed one. Look at our errors. And we can hopefully make this happy over here. Try to build again. And do this over here. Try to build again. And keep cleaning up these files. No, I probably should have just did a replace all. And everything builds now. So if we go back to our workflows within our profile context, we say open commands, and we also say open events, something like that. Okay. Now, a workflow is supposed to be a function. So let's say something like let, and if we look at a command, we see that there's a validate, right? So let's say let validate. How does this work? I'm not sure if I should really name a func. I'm not sure about naming these functions, right? And what I mean by that is, if I have a command called validate, do I really need to have a function called validate that takes in a validate command? I don't know. That seems kind of verbose. What if I have a function called handle, and handle takes in a command and it will basically spit out a list of events. And I'm thinking in Elm right now, event list, something like that. And we say that right here. And so now we have these different commands. We can squeeze you in over here, my friend. And we could do something like this over here, my friend. And we can do something like this right here, my friend. And we could tab you over, my friend. And we can have something like this, where these commands will have some type of payload associated to it, usually. And then it's going to ultimately return a list of events. Okay. Now, what? Um, oh, we could say function up here. Event is complaining, event implementations for our event type. No, so it doesn't know what we're talking about because the event is already used as to mean something else, which means that we need to make this unique. So how do we do that? Yeah, I think I gotta say to make this unique, Nikeza mobile. I'm gonna do that. I want to say profile.events. How about that? Profile.events. Like that. And over here we say, oh shoot, events was plural. Okay, so let me take a step back. This is just a module called events. What I really want is these events over here. Okay, so how this is me practicing, right? Ultimately, all these events are different types, and I want to be able to pull all these events together so that I can handle them in this one handle function here. So how would I do that? Well, I guess I would create an like kind of an aggregate. I don't know if that's really the right term, but I would basically say type event types equal, and this would have registration events, and it would have authentication events, and it would have profile events. That's the way. If we do it like this, then we can now, we should be able to say event types list like that. Now, if we do it like that, yeah, I'm not sure if this is going to work out. If we do it like that, then we now have handle the events like this here, which we do something like this. Yeah, they're probably going to have some info attached to them and something like that. But that doesn't look right to me. So let's see what we have. We have, well, yeah, because I'm supposed to be handling a command, but I'm passing in these events. All right. So, but each of these event types are containers. Yeah, so that's not right either. So stay on track, go back. You're doing the wrong thing. You're supposed to be, oh, shoot, how do you get rid of that IntelliSense window? Collapse it and bring it back. We're supposed to be doing this right here. Okay. And so let's undo that again. These are the commands that we have. And it's supposed to be it's supposed to do event types list in function, something like that. Okay. Well, I get a whole bunch of red squigglies on that. Why do I get a whole bunch of red squigglies? Not sure. It's the function takes too many arguments or is used in the context where a function is not expected. And what I say is, I say handle, and do I need to put this in parentheses? And we might as well say command is going to be command. And It is still complaining. And workflows should probably, let me make sure that my FS Proj, right click, edit in the case of workflows is way up here. That looks right. If I try to build, are these squigglies going to go away? This command is validate, try submit, login, edit. Yeah, all this stuff looks, except, well, yeah, all this stuff looks right. And it's supposed to output a list of event types, but it's not really supposed to output a list of event types. It's supposed to output a list of events. So I think there's going to be, this doesn't look like it's going to work. So instead of having one handler that's trying to handle everything, maybe we should have a handler per category of events. Okay, so what does that mean? Maybe there should be a registration handler. So, and then there should be a authentication handler and a profile handler. Maybe that's better. And I'm not sure, but we could try that. All right. So we're going to start off with registration. We say registration handler. Or we could say handle registration. That probably reads better. Handle registration. And handle registration. Yeah. I'm kind of stuck on this. There's only one set of commands. Okay. You have to remember that ultimately we are outputting events. So in this case, if I go here, it's registration events list. Okay. This function takes too many arguments. I still don't know what that means. If we're doing that, we remove a whole category of commands that we're just not going to handle. So do this right here. And I should be able to say function, man. It should work. And it doesn't like that. I don't know why. Function takes too many arguments or is used in the context where a function is not expected. Yeah, I'm not sure. If I don't do it like that, then I'm basically saying, oh, I know why, because I already have command in here. So I should be able to do something like this and then say function. And you should be happy. God damn it. That didn't work either. The squiggly says, all right, so you know what? I'm not going to put the command back in here. This command should be validate, try submit, whatever. It's going to output a registration list. Probably don't have to say this. And it accepts that, which means that probably get rid of this. And the compiler is happy with that. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to say you need to output registration events. I want to say this right here. It just doesn't like that. So that's me not really understanding the compiler. So we have handle registration, workflow. We're going to have another workflow called handle authentication here. Handle authentication. And that is going to have login, log out. Those are events. Go to the command, and it's log in. And there's a command that's missing, which is log out. Okay. So that will be in authentication. And we want to probably have info here. But the log out, I don't think requires info, but it's going to spit out an event, something like that. Okay. And we have a wildcard here. And do something like that. Okay. Logged out. Logged in, logged out. No, hold up. The command is log out. It wasn't saved. Save now. If I try to build, everything succeeds. Okay. So we have two different workflows. One workflow that handles registration commands, another workflow that handles authentication commands. And our last workflow is going to handle profile related commands. So we go back to commands. The profile related commands are edit profile and save profile. Okay. So we go to our workflows over here and we say let handle profile equal function and maybe something like this. And they both have data attached to it. So we say info, something like that, and they're going to output some domain events. So it's going to look something like this. And then we just add a wildcard. Do something like that. Okay. Everything should still build. So we handle registration, we handle authentication, we handle profile. Okay. These function names don't. Do these function names have an opportunity to read better? Handle registration, I don't really have a problem with. Handle authentication sounds right when you're doing login, but log out, that doesn't really sound like authentication. Is there a better name? to replace handle authentication with that deals with sign in. Handle, I don't know, handle session. Okay, handle session deals with login and log out. And what about handle profile? Handle profile deals with edit and save. Handle, eh, this is the profile bounded context. So handle edits. Handle, I don't know. Handle edits may seem okay. You could say handle update. Handle updates. And that's the best I could do right now. So now what? We have 3 different handlers that will spit out domain events per handler. And for handle registration, we have you validate and you try to submit. You validate what? Well, we should probably replace this info and use ubiquitous language. So we can either call it registration or we could call it a form. Validate registration, try submit registration. And so it could either be registration or it could be form. If I say form, that's shorter. Validate form, try to submit form. That's simpler. And I think it's still understandable. For handle session, you log in with what? You log in with your credentials, and log out. I don't think you need credentials to log out. Okay. And for handle update, info, you can edit profile and you can save a profile. All right. So to me, this is more readable than what we had before. Okay. Now what? Well, so they take a command, they spit out domain events. What we haven't done is actually spit out a domain events. Okay. So your handle registration, if the command is validate, it's going to have the form that's attached to that command, and it is going to pretty much, what happens when it validates that form? That's the question. What happens when it validates that form? Well, I'm going to say validates. We could say form validate, and that should return, but I say private validate, form equals, and should be registration event, should be the list, like that. Something like that. And so let's say form pipes into validate, or we could just probably say validate form. Probably reads better. Validate form. Okay. And what that should do is that is going to spit out a form validated or a form not validated. All right. That should spit out those events. So you would have something like that. Well, for right now, maybe we should default to form not validated. Okay. Now, what's this red squiggly about? It says this expression was expected to have type registration events, but unvalidated form. Yeah, so this form over here, this is going to be interesting. Say let unvalidated form equals, and I guess there's a registration dot registration unvalidated form, and no constructors are available for that. If we go to definition of unvalidated form, it is basically a record. So you say form equals form, and the form is the email, boom. All right, so you want to say unvalidated form equals, and it's going to have an email, a password. Okay, so you say email equals, and we got to say form dot email. This form is already here though, so maybe you should just say unvalidated form. Can we do that? Not really sure how this is supposed to go. Unvalidated form takes a form, and so we say you got to do something like this. You got to say form equals, and then form. All right, and that says validated, but what we really want is, where is validated at? What we really wanted to say is unvalidated form. So I'm not sure how do you force that. Well, it thinks a form is a profile request, and it's not. So we got to clean that up. Form is we want it to be a unvalidated form. Unvalidated form. We want that to be like this. Okay, and if that's the case, we don't need to do that over here. And it's just going to return a form not validated events. Okay. Now, it says the expression was expected to have type registration events, but here has type unvalidated form. It has a function that takes in an unvalidated form and spits out a registration event. So what this is saying is I need to attach the form to this event. Okay. So I should just be able to do something like this right here, where that works. So form not validated, and then we have the form in here. Everything should still build, and everything builds. Okay. So that's not the actual implementation that's required for this validate form workflow, but this is the start of it. By default, if nothing happens, then we should at least have a form not validated in here. And honestly, I mean, how many options do we have? We have form validated, form not validated, which are mutually exclusive. Then you also have form submitted. Okay, but that's not, yeah, form not validated. Now, that's when validation is successful, right? So in here, we could probably have an inner function called let. We could have like, yeah, let is valid, and then pass in form equals, and then I don't know, you could say if this is probably where you would use railway oriented programming, which I'm still on the fence. I kind of think it's overkill, but what do I know? Because I mean I'm learning. But you could say like if form dot and unvalidated form. I expect IntelliSense to like come up. Unvalidated form takes a form over here. So in a way, this is kind of messed up because it's kind of like form.form, which needs to, which isn't right. Um, and the thing is now this stuff is getting blurred, right? Because when we're doing registration, like the sources isn't necessary for what we need in this right now. The image URL isn't necessary for what we need right now. The ID isn't necessary for what we need right now. The bio isn't necessary. The only thing we really care about is the email and password, which isn't even in here. So we're using the wrong registration type. Like our registration, bare bones registration should just be email address and password. And validation should make sure that an email address looks like an email address, and your password and confirmation password are exactly the same, and that's it. That's what we really should be doing here. So your unvalidated form here, this form here, this is what we want right here, but it's not being recognized. So we probably need to say registration.form, which that's being, that's interesting. Unvalidated form is pointing to registration dot form, but up here, that's weird. This form, which says validated, this is all messed up, man. This form says it's validated, but that's not right because we defined the form up top as unvalidated. This isn't right. Hold up. So we look at this again. Unvalidated form. Now, what do we want to do with this? We want to say unvalidated form dot. And I guess this is just my IntelliSense because we want to say, okay, so we're going to do something like this. We're going to say unvalidated form. Do that right here. And it's actually a wrapper of a form. And so we say let form equal validated dot form like this. Okay. Now that form should be based on registration. So we should say like form dot, and this is what we wanted. I'm not sure what the difference was, but we want to say like if form dot email equals, we could say if form dot email is valid email, then turn false. Okay, something like that. And then you could say else, or is it elif? Elif. Yeah, you could say elif form dot password not equal to form dot confirm, and that up there, and missing this right here. If the form dot password is not equal to form dot confirm, then return false there too. Okay. And then you could say else true, something like that. Now we still got to define what it means to be a valid email. And for right now, I'm not too concerned about that. But I'll probably just say let, and then is valid email, and then email equal, and then just put false. Okay. So got this right here. Actually, that false on one line. And we have the result of the expression is explicitly null. So we say validate is what we're doing right here. And that's going to spawn off some domain events. So what we're doing is we're not really passing in a bool of true or false. This validate is supposed to return a domain event of validated or not validated, right? Form validated, form not validated. So that's what we're supposed to be doing. So if form.email is, we could say this. We could say if not form.email is valid email. And we wrap this in parentheses. Then we can basically pass this form not validated, or return this form not validated event like that. And we do the same thing over here. And if all that does pass, then the form is validated, and we could do that right here. Okay. Now we still get some red squigglies because I'm missing the actual form, I think. So we say form, or we say form not validated, unvalidated form, something like that. Right, because that's what that type is supposed to be. Okay, and then this form validated is supposed to be a validated form. So we say up here, say let validated form equals, and then we have like validated form, and we have form. Think like that. Invalidated form. So this validated form, how are we doing this? Let's get rid of the red squigglies. Validated form is our type, and it is going to basically say expects a record, and we say form equals something like that. So now your form is of that. Your form over here is of that. And that should be okay. I'm not sure what else I'm doing. Form validated should be something like this. Okay, now what? The result of this expression is ignored, consider using, ignore to discard, whatever. There we go, something like that. Okay. Now, this validated form says it's not defined. Why aren't you defined? Where are you at? Form validated. That's what I'm supposed to use. And form not validated. That right there. And then we can just either do this like this, or we can just do this right here like that. And something like this. Okay. Put some spacing in here. And I don't like the readability of that, but it is what it is right now. Okay. So if not, the form.email is a valid email, then we say form not validated. That's what we return as a domain event. Else, if the password is not equal to the confirmation password, we say form not validated. Else, if all that stuff is true or successful, then we can say that the form has been validated, and that's it. And that is our validate. That's one piece of our handle registration, which is our validate logic right here. Okay. Now I guess I could bring you two together for right now. And well, one is no, because one is the actual function, the other one is the value. Okay. So this is valid email. This is probably going to be somewhere else. It doesn't, well, oh, fuck it. It'll stay here, whatever. All right, so there's also try submit that also must be handled in this handled registration. And this try submit is actually going to rely on IO, right? And so I wonder what the rules are. I thought there was no IO when inside of a workflow, but this is a workflow, and well, you want to submit the command. So with that said, the book says that there is no IO done in a workflow. Okay. I need to review that part to find out why. But if that's what the guidance is there's no IO done in a workflow, this try submit needs to be removed. And all we have is for handling registration is just validate. And I guess when we execute a command and that command results in a form being validated, then the client that requested that command to be executed can then do the IO, and because it's not supposed to be done in the workflow. And I need to research why, but that's what the guidance is, and that's what I'm going to obey. So we remove this try submit, and which means that we no longer have to deal with that here. And that validate form is going to either return form validated or form not validated. And that's it. Okay. I don't like this open registration, that registration. That's not good. So what can we do with that? The module is called registration. It doesn't make sense for another module that's embedded to be called registration. Instead, that should probably be credentials. I should probably first build and then rename it. So this module is called credentials. I don't know, credentials form, credentials factory. I don't know. This module is called credentials. I don't know. It's not your credentials form. Okay, how about that? You have credentials form.form. That doesn't sound right. We'll say module equals I don't know what the name of the module should be. Call it accounts creation. Account creation.form. Yeah, that's the best I can do right now. Okay. So we try to build that. We should get an error, and then we just take account creation. We replace it with this registration over here. All right. So registration dot account creation dot form. That doesn't look right either. So why am I doing all this? Why don't I just get rid of this right here? And why can't I just have this sit like this? Like, what's wrong with that? And registration dot form. That looks fine. It says registration isn't defined over here. Open registration, something like that. Okay, that looks fine. And this form. I got a red squiggly, only one error, and it says this expression was expected to have type unvalidated form, but here it has form. Okay. So validate, if I go to the definitions, validate, you're right. It should be, validate should take a unvalidated form. Good stuff. I love you, compiler. And everything succeeds. I could get rid of this open registration over here. Okay. So we go back to our workflow. Our handle registration only validates a form. The next thing I need to do, and I guess it'll be in a different video, is handle session for login and log out. But you know what? Like that's IO too. This log in and log out. The ultimately it results in IO being done. I guess there's opportunities to save data. That can be done, right? Well, but that's still IO. Yeah, I don't think log in, log out is a workflow. These workflows always take a command and will always spit out domain events. And log in, log out, even though those are like commands that are executed for a button click via MVVM pattern or model view model pattern, I don't think there's really much to do with this handle session for log in, log out. It's only going to do IO, and that's it. There's no real work being done. So yeah, I'm prepared to remove. Now, let me think about this. Yeah, like maybe IO can be done before hitting a workflow or after hitting a workflow. So pre-workflow or post-workflow, maybe IO can be done in there. But the book says when you're inside the workflow, thou shall be no IO. And that I mean, yeah, I can't think of any other logic that would be in there. So all these commands, these commands are only relevant for workflows and nothing else. They, they're not going to be used for anything else. Now, I'm saying this out loud, but domain events are either spawned by commands or they're spawned by other events. And so, with that said, when you log in, there's the event that a user has been logged in. When you log out, there's an event that a user has logged out, right? Those are domain events. It is. Commands are required for those domain events to basically be to to be recognized. Yeah, man. I mean, this is a good experience that I'm going through, but I'm kind of stuck. Yeah, I'm kind of stuck. I'm not sure what to do. If you log in, yeah, can domain events exist without a command? I think they can. Yeah, I'm getting rid of this. So we now have 3 commands for a profile. And the login, log out, the handle session, like that's just it's unneeded. Handle updates, edit and save. And the edit part. Oh, all this. How do you do this, man? Let me bring this back. And oh, what did I just do? Bring that back one. You can edit a profile and you can save a profile. And I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure. Like, I'm still stuck on that log in, log out. Like, if you pass in if you pass in a function that basically represents IO, but it's a function. I mean, yeah, behind the scenes it's doing IO, but like, what are the rules on that? I don't know. You know, I don't know. I'm gonna bring all this stuff back. Handle session, and then go back to commands. I'm gonna bring this back. I don't know what the rules are. I need to ask. And I'm going to kill this video. And that's it. So I'm stuck. Basically, what I'm getting at is commands are responsible for spawning domain events. But the book says that you don't do any IO within your workflow, which is what I've been working on, is the workflow. And so there's a handle session workflow that I declared, in which there's commands for logging in and logging out. And obviously, this is going to do IO. It is, but the product of of these commands being executed are domain events. And that's what every workflow has. It has a command and domain event. And my understanding is domain events are triggered by commands that get executed. But if a command is tightly coupled to I/O, but you're not supposed to have I/O in your workflow, well, how do you trigger these events? And so my thought process is, well, maybe they meant that you don't do explicit I/O, and maybe it's acceptable to basically have is it called a high order function, where your the data attached to your command is a function that serves as an interface that ultimately can execute I/O, right? Um, and so that's what I'm thinking is acceptable, but I have to ask, and that's it. So I'm gonna end this. This is good, man. This is working on something real and questions bubbling up. So I'm gonna stop this broadcast. I'm out. Peace.